안녕하세요. And in the case I'm pronouncing that wrong, I'm saying hello in Korean. My name is Kavin Sivasubramanian, and I am presenting my Korean 3415 final exam project. And the film that I've chose here today is Malmo-i, The Secret Mission. All right, so let me go on to first talk about why this film actually matters. And with that, I would like to start by asking you a question. So, what would happen if you say that speaking your own language was considered a crime? So that's what this film mainly focuses on. So it shows how ordinary people who risk their lives to protect the Korean heritage. The film also shows that resistance doesn't always have to like involve violence, but it can take like other forms, such as preserving culture and identity. And the reason I chose this film is because it shows how language itself can become like a powerful tool for survival and resistance. So in this case, it'd be like under the colonial rule. Now, to give you a little bit of context, so here's some basic film information. The film was directed by Yuna and released in South Korea in January 2019. I'm sorry in advance if I'm pronouncing any of their names wrong. But this film is supposed to be set around the 1930s to 1940s under the Japanese colonial rule in Korea. And the main cast includes Kim Pan-soo and Jung Hwan, and they focus on like the everyday struggles of people living under the colonial oppression. So yeah, I guess in this case would be the Japanese that is ruling over Korea. All right, now to give you a little bit around about like the background of the director. So the director Yuna he's known for creating these type of films that focus on ordinary people facing historical and social challenges. So this is his type of film. And rather than focusing on like famous political leaders, she highlights stories and like human emotions and gives more importance to them. So in this film, she uses like simple characters to tell a much larger story about national identity. And this is her first historical feature film, and it reflects her interest in memory, language, and identity. So it was a huge film, um, and definitely very interesting to watch. So, I guess a little bit of a plot overview without going too much into it is the film follows Kim Pan-soo. So he's basically an uneducated man who struggles with reading and writing in a society that values literacy. So he meets Chung Hwan, who is secretly involved in the efforts to preserve the Korean language. And together they become part of a hidden mission to collect and document Korean words. And as the story progresses, the personal growth reflects like the broader struggle of like the Korean people in all. So yeah, just some basic plot here. And a little bit of historical background for the film, since we are talking about it, is Korea was colonized by Japan from 1910 to 1945, during which like the Korean culture and identity was like suppressed. So they did not allow for that at all. They didn't allow for discovering it and anything like that. So the Japanese government they attempted to replace the Korean language and education with Japanese. And by the late 1930s, the use of Korean in schools and public spaces were severely restricted. And for many Koreans, simply speaking in their native language become an act of resistance. So that's what this film focuses on. And speaking Korean, actually, it led to severe punishments as well um, during that time. So something to keep in mind. And by we're talking about history, I guess we can talk about the history of the film. The film Malmo-i, it refers to collecting words. So that's what that means in Korean. And the film is inspired by a real Joseon language society which worked secretly to create the Korean dictionary. So that was very interesting when I found out. And in 1942, many members of the society were arrested during the Joseon Language Society incident. But despite this persecution, they still survived and became the foundation for modern Korean dictionaries. Now, when we're comparing the history to the film representation, here are some things that I noticed. So while the characters in the film are fictional, they're inspired by real historical figures. And the film accurately portrays like the danger, the secrecy involved protecting the Korean language at that time period. And some events are like I guess dramatized to create that emotional impact, but I would still say that the history there is still truthful. And the balance allows viewers to like emotionally collect, or connect with like the film, but also like us, we can realize that this was actually history and we can like understand the struggles that people felt back in the day. So, some key themes and messages that I saw throughout the film was the first one was I saw that language is a core part of someone's national identity. So that's something that you want to preserve, something you want to continue practicing, whether I guess here Korean or not, it's something that you want to be a part of. So that was one thing that I took away. The film also like very emphasizes that resistance can come from ordinary people, and it doesn't have to just come from like any revolutionaries or like groups or societies. It also shows that education and literacy are shown as the most powerful tools for freedom and self-respect, rather than violence. And overall, the film argues that cultural survival is essential for a nation's future. And I guess this case here it is Korea against Japan. All right, so what I learned throughout the entire film is that I learned language preservation was a major form of resistance during the colonial rule, which was interesting because, the first thing we would think of was violence or anything like that. Next, I was also surprised to learn that creating a dictionary could become like a whole political threat. Punishments are super severe for doing that as well, all for just, creating a dictionary. The third one is I would say the film helped me understand how colonial control extended into everyday life and education, showing how it impacted ordinary people on such a smaller scale. So it was very interesting to see that. And it also made me really change the way how I think about language. So it made me like show that language connects you to like power, your identity as a person, and really shows the roots you're from. And I guess while we're talking about that, some memorable scenes or symbols that I saw like in the movie. One of the most powerful symbols is I saw is the secret of writing Korean words. Also, I thought that learning how to read and write becomes an act of empowerment rather than just like education. Um, I would say that the dictionary also represents survival of Korean culture and history, so that's something like a symbol. And I would say each word in that dictionary symbolizes memory, resistance, and hope for the future of generations and preserving Korean here. So, and that's what the film was mainly talking about, preserving it. And I would say the film's impact on the audience and like the reception is that it was really well received by the audience in South Korea. I would say that the film is like often praised for its like high emotional storytelling, but also its ability to still connect back to history and its historical importance. It has been used in educational settings to teach students about colonial history. So I guess an example would be this class where we're watching the film to understand the the history of Korea and under the Japanese colonial rule. And also I would say the film like renewed public interest in history of Korean language. So it was definitely well received by the audience and definitely a huge hit, I would say. And to conclude, I would say Maomoi, The Secret Mission shows how cultural resistance can take many, many forms. That reminds viewers how language is super like connected to one's identity and and that can lead to freedom. And I would say by honoring those who protected the Korean language, the film preserves their legacy so that we don't forget about them. We understand their importance in history, society. And it also teaches us that, these small acts can leave a huge footprint, especially I get in this case, right? Having a lasting historical significance. So something really, really interesting. And I would say also the film was very fun to watch, and I thank this class for allowing me, for giving me that opportunity to watch this film. And to finish off, I would like to give my sources and credits. This presentation is based on course material, historical references, and the film itself. Historical information comes from the Japanese colonial rule studies on Korea, and images and clips are used in fair use for educational purposes. And the film is Maomoi, The Secret Mission, 2019. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great rest of your day.